All right. All right, we're live. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat box. You can hear? Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody here on such short notice. I'm Andrew Camargo, and I'm going to be speaking tonight about the Shamanic Archetype and how the initiatory process today in the modern age in a modern culture. So first, I'd like to introduce myself, a bit about myself, from and where I got this what I'm going to be presenting to you tonight. A little bit, so I can hear it. So all of these stories kind of begin with a slightly autobiographical, a largely autobiographical tale, but those are becoming kind of commonplace now. I mean, everybody here, everybody that's gathered here that was inspired to come here, they have their autobiographical tale of initiation. So I'm not going to get into any of the details so much about it. I just connect with you because I think we're all having very similar experiences, and that's one of the themes of the webinar tonight. So it begins with a breakdown. It always begins with a breakdown. So my story is not unique. What's unique is what I did with it. So it started when I was 19. I had an existential breakdown, a religious crisis, existential crisis, and I had the equivalent of an ego breakdown. When that happened, that left my psyche really open to the layer underneath that we call the artists. And when that happened, I was studying psychology and film in university at the time, and my father was a psychologist, and I was really kind of straight-edged fellow. And when that happened, that threw my life into a tailspin. I started hearing voices. I started having a tremendous amount of energy and insight, and that I couldn't really handle so well. And I came very close to, being diagnosed and being medicated, and a difficult time. So luckily at the time, I found something that really helped me. And this is one of the things I want to talk to you about tonight. I found the work of Carl Jung. A lot of people here probably are already familiar with this work. Carl Jung was Sigmund Freud's successor, and a form of psychology that is becoming increasingly more accessible to people today because it's founded in his experience that he had, because he had a crisis, this kind of modern day shamanistic crisis, and it was the foundation of his whole psychology. So when I found his work, that really helped me understand what I was going through. Shamanistic initiation, he called it, he used psychological language because that was his task in life, was to acknowledge into the field of psychology, the emerging field of psychoanalysis, which under Freud's leadership was going towards atheism and materialism, this original primeval shamanistic initiatory experience, and out of that do a real soul retrieval on many levels, but especially on the level of psychoanalysis. And so when I found this work, it actually helped me a great deal, and so I followed it, and I used it to help me understand what I was going through. And that only got me so far. When I graduated from university, I started, swimming in my creative unconscious for years. I was filling journals. I was doing art, eccentric, and I wasn't grounded at all. And I was sort of suffering this vague, undefinable suffering. And around that time, I discovered the concept of shamanism. And the notable thing about that was that I didn't discover it in a lineage, an indigenous lineage, or even any traditional lineage. I discovered it in concept. You know, I thought, oh, a shaman is somebody who goes into an altered state and journeys into the spirit world, and goes and retrieves a soul and comes back, or goes and does healing in the spirit world and then comes back. And it was kind of what I was doing with my creative work. So I really latched onto it, and I became very enthusiastic about it. And alongside that was also discovery of the sacred, realm of entheogens, what some people call psychedelics, what I prefer to call entheogens. And again, outside of a tradition, I began experimenting, and I thought that was shamanism. I thought, oh, I'm a modern day shamanic candidate, and I'm going to experiment with this and self-initiate. And using Carl Jung as guidance, and reading about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and using that as guidance for my self-initiation. Since this is a brief synopsis, I'll fast forward 2 years later when I was in big trouble, because I got in way over my head, because there was something missing that could only be called really elders. I thought I was okay with Carl Jung as an elder. Something was really missing, so I had to go on a journey to find what was missing. I heard what was missing in the realm of alchemy, but it was actually hidden, concealed in the symbolism of alchemy. So 6 or 7 years, I did everything I could to try to tie together everything I was going through. Started with Jung. This was my approach to the shamanistic experience, and I was using that to understand. And then I went to Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and that was helping me understand what was going on. I was thinking of things in terms of mythological characters, and I was seeing my life as this mythological narrative. That led me into shamanism and entheogenic lineage, and of course that got me into trouble. And then I found the missing link through alchemy. So over the past 7 years, I've done a lot of work trying to weave those 4 things together, and that's the goal of modern soul science. The School of Modern Soul Science is studying contemporary initiation as we're all experiencing it today. We're all having this awakening of this shamanistic experience. I call it the Shamanic Archetype, and I'm going to be talking about that. And these 4 vessels, these 4 disciplines approach the same subject in 4 different ways, but they complement each other in a very magical way. What the strength of Jungian psychology is its analytical power, and its modern day sobriety, and its healthy emphasis on the ego, but it maybe lacks something in terms of shamanistic gnosis of like going into the spirit world and fighting demons and doing real soul retrievals and having real encounters with entities, and the more kind of advanced shamanistic work. And mythology, what it has in creativity, in specificity, and alchemy, of course, is decode. So I've really put together this curriculum that weaves these 4 things together, and this is my gift in this journey now. It's been about 17 years, and I'm returning now to my culture, having done this work, to share with you now the fruits of this journey. I'm gonna go into a slideshow now, and you'll see my face again for the Q&A. So I want to say, if you stay till the end, I will be offering a special opportunity. Enrollment for the School of Modern Soul Science is open this week, and enrollment closes on Friday. So at the end of the webinar, I'm going to give you a special opportunity to enroll in the entire curriculum of the school. So go in the slideshow now. So the goal of this webinar is to really help you link your personal experience of the shamanic archetype with what came before, what we call a lineage. Within our own civilization, what is the shamanic archetype? How is it activating? How is it activating in me, in you personally? And how is it activating more generally in the culture? And is there an initiatory process? Is there an overarching archetypal initiatory process? This process, and what at a very practical level can we do to address the dangers? Say something about terminology here because it's sticky, shamanism, because what are we talking about when we talk about shamanism? I would be speaking about specifically not shamanism, but the shamanic archetype as a psycho-spiritual phenomenon that we can all experience, that we all have in us. So there's a distinction to be made between the shamanic archetype and being a shaman. So I don't consider myself a shaman, and I discourage people from aspiring to be a shaman in the sense of a noun, because what does it really mean to be a shaman? It's that word is really designating somebody who has really incarnated this archetype very fully, very profoundly. So I do use the word shamanic to describe an individual who has incarnated the archetype or is in the process of incarnating this archetype. So everybody here caught this wave into this webinar is somehow guided archetype, and I would consider it, it's very likely a shamanic individual who's working very hard, who's been through a lot to get to this point, through already either involuntary, initiatory, voluntary seeking to get to this point, because they're working very hard to incarnate aspects of this archetype. So if we look at the specifics of this archetype, we don't have to call ourselves a shaman. We can say how we're actually incarnating the archetype, what aspects we're incarnating, what function we're playing in the culture. Just one blanket term for shaman. So I'm not speaking about it in any sort of anthropological way, but more a psychological way. This is an alchemical picture from the European tradition of a great alchemist, and something that I get into in my course is the vital relationship between shamanism and alchemy. Screen share. My apologies. One moment. You can't see my screen, so right away. There. Okay, so how do I okay. So sorry guys, I'm not a tech whiz. That's not my strength. I'm a teacher, and I'm a bit of a hermit and a bit antiquated here. So I need to get into bear with me here. I'll leave. I can just speak while I find. I need to get into my video editing suite. Uh-oh, this is the point where people might. So I put out a workbook. in terms of speaking about the shamanic archetype, I put out a workbook, and start Hangouts on air. Okay, I think we got it fixed here. Just one moment. Your patience is appreciated. I've just started. I mean, this is the whole point. I'm like returning from this eccentric journey, and fine. And the other call? No. There we go. Okay, screen share. Sorry about that, folks. Here we go. On the chat box, you can see the screen okay. The delay. I am learning how to present my. Okay. So this image is an image from European alchemy. This is a high initiate alchemist, a legendary figure, and it's rather similar to somebody fully incarnate, very strongly incarnating the shamanic archetype. So we're going to get into the parallels of shaman. This is a very crucial thing because alchemy is our shamanistic lineage as Westerners, as descendants of European colonists. But to get into a general definition of the archetype, or rather, what is a shamanic individual? Let's say, what is a shaman? Is somebody who's incarnating the archetype very profoundly as an elder, not as a young person. But a shamanic individual whose soul has been initiated into the spiritual world, and as a result, can actively and consciously work in the immaterial or supersensible realms. These realms, the work out in some sort of non-ordinary state of consciousness, trance, and the subject and focus of the work is what we call the soul. Now, it's not just working in the spiritual realm. The archetype is the coming back to the material realm, the work. So in this way, such an individual bridges and mediates between realms. It is so deeply that they're able to connect it and flow into one another. Here's another alchemical picture of an alchemist bridging the four elements. So such an individual serves as a medium and a technician between these two realms. And it's not so simple as just two realms, like this is the material world and that's the spirit world. I mean, even the spiritual world itself has many and levels and layers. So, but there is a distinct threshold. Specializes in crossing, and such individuals are tenders of the relationship between these realms. They tend to the exchange between these realms, and they're messengers. They're messengers of the so-called tribe, messenger of the gods to the tribe, and it's just there's an interchange. And the spiritual world is made manifest in the material world through them, and vice versa. The material world, the human world, is made manifest in the spirit world through them. So such an individual has cultivated and made manifest what we call the divine inner spark, the inner presence of God. Just like recognize that they have it, because we all have it. It's they've actually awakened it, and more than awakened it, they've actually grown it, and more than even grown it, they've actually fixed it, crystallized it, so that it becomes a vehicle, a stable vehicle for shamanic work. So you can say that they can now walk in the spiritual world. And walk meaning they can remain conscious or fly in the spiritual world. And this is gained through and only through the initiation process. Bridges of more bridging. This is an impressive example of that. Microcosm and the macrocosm, above and below, and feminine, two polarities being bridged here. This is the realm, this is symbolic representation where the shamanic archetype takes place, in the space that bridges realms. So in order to, because we're going to go into the science of initiation, the science of modern day initiation. Into that, I'm going to lay a little bit of groundwork and bridge somewhat with ideas from esotericism, Western esotericism, most notably the idea of the subtle body. Different traditions have different names for them. I'm going to be borrowing from the Western, or invoking the Western esoteric tradition, the alchemical tradition, as North Americans. The shamanic individual is one who has awakened and cultivated and transmuted his or her to a considerable degree. And this really is the aim of initiation. This is the objective of initiation. Astral body is the vehicle for every form of shamanic work. So an initiated shamanic individual has illuminated and crystallized their astral body, and that it's actually interwoven with their ego. So their ego has become spiritualized and imprinted by their illuminated astral body, and so they're able to retain in the astral realms, and so they can now consciously work out of their astral bodies. Like the astral body's imprinted the ego's imprinted the astral body. There's a co-creation that has taken place, and through that they can now retain their consciousness in the other realms, and to a certain extent navigate and have will. Now they can navigate through their will. Spiritual bodies are awakened, brought into consciousness, built, purified, and tamed. Now, tamed is a very important concept of initiation. It's a very subtle concept, but it really can make the difference between a successful initiation and a pathological one. Crystallized. As I said, different traditions have different names. The Western occult tradition, these higher bodies are called the astral body, which I also call the soul body. And there's another body just above the physical body, that etheric body, or you call the pranic body, or the energy body. But to bridge it with modern psychology has a name for the astral body. So psychology is a modern study of the astral body. So the astral body is the same as the soul body, is the same as the psyche. Is the astral body? How can you listening right now relate to it? Like, okay, these are abstract concepts. Like, oh, I have an etheric body, I have an astral body, but like, how can you really relate to it? Well, the astral body is the carrier. Your joys and your pains, your sorrows and your pleasures, your unconscious personality, like your shadow, the seed of your higher self. And I don't say your higher self, because your higher self exists at first as a potentiality. It needs to be built. It needs to be. It needs to incarnate gradually. So the astral body can be perceived, but by those with clairvoyant spiritual perception. Some people will actually have clairvoyant spiritual perception. People on this path with it, or are actively cultivating it. And you can cultivate, everybody can cultivate it, but some people are just really, truly born with it. They have to hide it, suppress it somehow. However, the astral body can be indirectly observed by everybody because it's reflected in the imagination, in our dreams. When we dream, we're in our astral body. It's reflected in art. Art is a symbolic representation of the astral body. Music is also a sort of a reflection of the astral body. Drama and mythology, feelings, moods, energy, and intuition. When you have intuition, that's the intelligence of your astral body. When you feel energy, when you perceive energy, you're perceiving out of your higher bodies. And also because of the astral body is the carrier of passions and pains, it's also responsible for the dynamics of attraction and repulsion, and that includes sexual attraction, the shadow projections. This is all taking place through people's astral bodies, the unawakened parts of your own astral body in the other person, and there's a hook in their unawakened astral body that hooks on your projection. This is all taking place in the astral body. So this body, the soul body, is a meeting ground in matter. Above and below, masculine, feminine, light and shadow, life and death. It's the medium upon which the impulses and archetypal consciousness of the spirit world imprints itself upon the individual ego. We can't necessarily experience the spirit world in all its splendor without a valve, without a lens. Astral body is like, if you want to like peek around a corner without sticking your head around the corner, you'll stick a mirror out and you'll be able to see around the corner. Astral body, like we can't necessarily perceive the spirit world directly, so the spirit world is reflected to us, to our individual limited consciousness through our astral body. It's like the mirror, cosmic mirror. I like to think of it as a stage. It's a stage upon which the cosmic forces of creation sort themselves out within the individual soul and form this kind of mythological. So like when an artist pours their psyche out on a canvas or onto a story, they're actually kind of they're projecting their astral body onto some sort of form. It can be observed. So the imagination body's inwardly perceptible anatomy. Like I said, when you dream, you're in your astral body. And when you go into a trance, this is where the role of trance comes in. When you go into a trance, your consciousness shifts out of your ego more into your astral body. Look at alchemical art. One of the keys to decoding alchemy is understanding what they're depicting. Well, I'll tell you now, they're depicting the astral body in its various stages of awakening, separation, illumination, crystallization. There's always this quality in alchemical art. The subject of the alchemical art is always mediating opposites. So try to think of to bridge now, like we said, the astral body is called the psyche in psychology. Let's bridge even further. The organs of the astral body, because it's a body, it has its own organs. The organs of the astral body are analogous to what Carl Jung called the archetypes of the collective unconscious. These are cosmic forces reflected in human psyche. Human psyche is a reflection of the cosmos. And the archetypes that we find in ourselves are reflections of macrocosmic building blocks. So I have, some of you may have already gotten this workbook I put out recently, the 25 facets of the shamanic archetype. For those that are here now that have attended, have caught the wave, this webinar, we will be sending you this workbook. This workbook goes into detail about the archetype, but each of these facets, so it breaks it down into 25 facets, each of these facets can be considered potential organs of shamanic capacity in service to society. So everybody here is manifesting some configuration of these 25 facets. Configuration. That's why we don't just call ourselves a shaman. We can be more precise with that. I'm starting to be a shaman. We could be far more precise than that. Say, I'm working to incarnate this aspect of the archetype, this aspect of the archetype. We all have our unique configuration of it. It behooves us to be really precise with our terminology so that we don't fall into inflation. So people speak of the higher self and ego as though like the voice in their head, like their intuition was their higher self, and their stubbornness was their ego, or their ignorance was their ego, and their inner wisdom was their higher self. But it's actually more complex than that. This role, this middle body, the astral body, it's necessary to prepare this middle body to be an appropriate vehicle to incarnate through the ego, because it's the soul body's job to translate the higher self into the ego. The astral body as the temple builder that anchors heaven's door and the foundation of the earth. So the higher self, or the spirit self, the divine spark, must build its temple in advance, and then arrive and inhabit the temple, to arrive in the Holy of Holies, in the middle of the temple, step by step. And it's the astral body that builds the temple that the higher self can eventually inhabit. Self as the destination, the goal of your soul's evolution, and it's radiating its wisdom and guidance to your ego body. Soul body is the face of your higher self in the present moment. It's a messenger and a guide. It's guiding you to that potentiality in the future. Your soul body is always guiding you through the process of incarnating your higher self, but you need to know the science of initiation comes in. This is where alchemy comes in. This is where shamanistic lineages come in, because these carry the art and the science of this process. So there's a necessary separation that needs to take place. Separated from the ego. Why? Because prior to the separation, the astral body is all chaotically bound up with the ego in this web. Bound up. Why, what we call the unconscious in psychology, the unconscious, and we'll say the unconscious I find to be an inadequate term, because it's just saying like, okay, it's not yet conscious, but it's somehow affecting us. So it's something, but it's not. It's something, but it's not something. I like to give it as the aspects of our astral body that have not been consciously, that have not been awakened into consciousness, but are still affecting us and profoundly guiding us and affecting us, whether it be positively, negatively, neurosis, inspiration, what have you. So the unconscious, the unawakened aspects of the astral body. And when we first experience it, it's usually in this shadowy, chaotic state, and everything's all jumbled up and mixed together. So there's separations and distillations that need to take place. The uninitiated ego acts like a prison, astral body, and that can actually make the soul sick, depressed, fragmented, distorted, and many forms of pathology. So this is the role of the dismemberment, the archetypal dismemberment that every shamanistic initiatory tradition has, that we're all going, that everybody here has experienced, guaranteed. Every single person here has experienced some form of dismemberment, and has a very compelling and serious and intense story about their journey that brought them to this point. So when the ego goes through an initiatory dismemberment, the astral body is freed of growth forces from the astral realm, because prior it's being suffocated. So, but it's freed, it expands into the astral realms, and it can be fertilized by cosmic growth forces force of the sun, force of the moon, force of the stars, force of the astral realm, can fertilize it with growth forces. And then it can return to the ego, and the ego. And in this way, the individual gains consciousness of the astral body, and this is the beginning of capacity for shamanic work. This imprinting process is very important. Fertilized astral body imprints on the next lower body down, the energy body, which in turn imprints on the physical body. So the nature of like what's going on in your astral body really profoundly influences every aspect of your being, like even as far as your physical appearance, your energy signature, like your vibrational signature, your health. Like, illness is that the spirit or the disease or the dark, arrow or what have you enters into your astral body first, and then it imprints down, and it eventually manifests in the physical realm. So the ego is an individual stamp of the higher self working through the astral body. Ego is not something that we need to dig. It's something we need to subject to the alchemical process. It needs to be ripped apart and reforged like many times, but we need to keep ennobling it and spiritualizing it. And that's the way to be in incarnating this archetype in your culture. So here on the left, we have a kind of an alchemical image that reminds me of this imprinting process. The sun force is imprinting on the moon force, which can be symbolized as the astral body, which in turn is imprinting on the center body. On the right there, same thing, representation of an astral body, wings in the head in the astral, and the feet on the earth, planets radiating their influence into the center and the four elements. So these artists are representing the astral body in its various stages of evolution and alchemical development. So now we're going to link the astral body to the shamanic archetype. As every human has a unique brain, heart, lungs, and spine, etc., with a consistent anatomy, every human also has a unique astral body. Also has, though it's unique, a consistent spiritual anatomy. So has a different neural network than your brain, but we still have the same lobes, the same shape, the same anatomy. So it's the exact same with the astral body. The shamanic archetype is another word for the consistent spiritual anatomy of the astral body. I can put out a workbook on the 25 facets of the shamanic archetype, and it really, like a lot of people will relate to it and really feel with it. And people from vastly different walks of life can really feel connected to the same archetype, because this archetype is like another word for the activating astral body that we all have that's anatomically consistent. If you think about like a microcosm macrocosm model here, in the individual case, when like in the microcosmic case, when the uninitiated ego breaks down, the astral body naturally activates and expands. That's just what happens. Apply that to a macrocosmic level. If we happen to be living at a particular time on Earth of mass crisis, it's inevitably going to create a collective astral body separation. Have spiritual yearnings in their soul are breaking away, are being separated from the ego that needs to be dismembered. These are like the early separators, the ones that are undergoing it first. They're breaking away from materialism, atheism, agnosticism, organized religion, scientific materialism, and are finding direct mystical experiences of God and magic of Gnostic spirituality. And by Gnostic spirituality, I mean spirituality based on your direct experiences. So it seems to me that this thing I'm calling the shamanic archetype is from the collective unconscious, particularly strongly at this time, galvanizing and guiding the deepest spiritual yearnings of a new generation. It's fomenting for the forces of cultural revolution and a sort of revolutionary awakening of consciousness. And why now? Well, we all know why now. It's emergency healing response to the planetary and spiritual crisis we are all now collectively facing. So every culture has its own version of a shaman. Like I said, it's an archetype. You know, it's in every human. It's the phenomenology of the astral body itself, and every human has an astral body. So every human culture has specialists of the astral body. And the shamans from different cultures go by different names, and they specialize in different forms of spiritual, magical, and healing capacities. So shamanism, archetypal shamanism, well, the archetypal phenomenon of shamanism has to be, it can't remain in the archetypal realm. It has to actually become culturally specific, accomplish its bridging function. Because a shaman from a specific culture specializes in that culture, that culture's sacred history, that culture's spiritual struggles. As Westerners, as North Americans, is related. We're all human. We're all facing crisis, but like it's unique. It's different than people from the East, than indigenous cultures, that people that have never been contacted by the West. So, you know, each individual tending to their culture is responsible for that culture's unique spiritual challenges and that culture's karma, cosmic struggles. So this leads us to the question of a kind of identity crisis for us. Like, okay, we're facing widespread crisis. The shamanic archetype is activating far and wide, and we're getting a huge wave of generation of people being called to embark on some sort of shamanistic initiation. Where are our elders? Like, where is our lineage? Like what are we being initiated into? What do we do? What is our culture? Now, let's be frank. We're predominantly North Americans, and we're also predominantly native English speakers. So whether you like it or not, that means that we, despite being like, you walk down this, you walk in cities in North America, we're incredibly ethnically diverse and eclectic. But we're living in a culture that descends from colonial empires that actually tried to stamp out and exterminate like impulse in humanity. So this is kind of the paradox of our karma and what we have to face in our journey to become tenders of our culture's soul. So our ancestry, for the most part, is European, driven by the colonial impulse. But what is our lineage of ancestral wisdom? Archetype manifested in our culture. If it's a universal presence, if it's a universal archetype, it must have manifested throughout the last 1,000 years, the last 2,000 years. So where is it? So before I tell you that, I mentioned that I put out a workbook. Everybody that came here tonight will receive a copy of this workbook. It's a free workbook, and it's a really powerful tool. You go through the workbook, and the shamanic archetype has been broken down into 25 facets, and you answer questions as you go through it, and you get a score on 12 scores based on how much the facets are resonating with you, and there's prompts, and in the end you get a unique of how these facets are working in you. The potential capacities, and when you do this work on your astral body, these are like the potential organs of capability, of shamanic capacity. And so this is really the good news about all this. This is like, this is very empowering and inspiring. and a lot of you will like are already, you know, very strongly manifesting a lot of these facets already. So how is it possible for us to actually do this? You know, I covered that already. I mean, the answer is actually simple. It's the initiation process. It's a rigorous initiation process, and you know, a lot of people have actually already been either, if not like fully consciously initiated, subconsciously initiated. They've already gone through their initiation processes. It's never ending. Testing a lot of these facets. So I'm going to go over now if there's a shamanic archetype, there's an archetypal initiation narrative. So the first stage of the narrative is the call. The bodies, the ego and the astral bodies are really starting to get tense with each other. They're starting to loosen. They're starting to be ripped apart. There's a equilibrium is destabilized. This is the call phase, the crisis phase. Separation starts to happen, and it often happens in the form of an illness, an accident, or a wound. Much a wound, usually a trauma, usually, and the trauma starts to separation process and also sets up a soul retrieval, the arc of the initiation. So the first call to crisis, separation, and illness, is the descent to the underworld for dismemberment, death, resurrection. This is the separation of the bodies, the higher bodies from the ego, the physical body. And then the good part is the spiritual separated. You realize there is something beyond the physical world. There is something beyond the ego. And you realize this when your higher bodies are separated and they can be fertilized. That's the rebirth. Once that happens, there can be an ascent. And this can be both and a lifelong work. You can have this one experience where you encounter God, and this could stay with you for the rest of your life and guide you for the rest of your life, and or it's a gradual ascension, little by little. This is all about attuning your higher bodies to God, forces of creation. This is essential. And this is also the point where you receive your mission, purpose of your incarnation. Your specific mission, not a vague general mission, a very attainable mission, your unique mission that you are called to accomplish. Of that, you need to obtain power. You need to obtain the spiritual resources to accomplish it. So this is about forming alliances in the spirit world and specializing, attuning your astral body to the helping and healing forces of the spiritual world. But then, interestingly, comes the you could call it the dry part of it, but it's like the student part, like the didactic part, the historical instruction, where you have to memorize like the history of the tribe. You know, you have to actually immerse yourself in your lineage. You have to immerse yourself in the culture, because you can't perform the bridging function unless you have like one foot in the helping forces of the spirit world and then one foot in the culture. This is essential to the bridging. So what do we do? Where is our, you know, what is our didactic period of instruction? Now, having bridged the spiritual world and the historical, there can be now the carrying out of the mission. Preparation is set. Now it's time to carry it out. And this is the rite of passage. This is a rite of passage into genuine. And this is really, if you insist on calling someone a shaman, then they should only really even be considered once they've accomplished this stage of the narrative. And this stage is usually a kind of it through the hero's journey as a sub-narrative, because there's invariably a facing of evil. overcoming of temptation, facing of evil, and self-sacrifice. And a deed is accomplished. It's the healing, the redeeming, the healing deed, the soul retrieval. It can be an individual soul that's retrieved. This can be many souls, like in the case of like psychotherapists, like many souls helping many people. Be a cultural soul. And there's the return. After that, the individual passes into elderhood, and their responsibility becomes initiating the next generation. It's not it. There's one more stage. Passage into the spiritual world and continuing to work from the other side. Because such an individual has really built their higher bodies, has really crystallized their higher bodies, and can continue working out of their higher bodies without a physical body. So the call, crisis, separation, and initiatory illness, the descent to the underworld, dismemberment, death, rebirth, resurrection, to the celestial realm, receiving spiritual mission. This is attuning your astral body to God. Then there's a period of obtaining power, forging spiritual alliances, and specializing your astral body to the helping and healing forces of the spiritual world so that you can work to receiving the other end, bridging back into the culture, receiving didactic, traditional, historical instruction for the mission. Then there's the carrying out of the spiritual mission, the rite of passage into genuine shamanic service, passage into elderhood, and the passage into the spiritual world. So we didn't go over the 25 facets of the archetype, but I'm going to give you the workbook so you can do that at home, and that's going to be very constructive and illuminating and encouraging and inspiring and validating and many, many good things. And the narrative that I just told you is also very inspiring, I find. It's a very clear roadmap. So now I'm going to focus on the difficult part. And this really pertains to like that initial stage of the narrative I showed you. This one, the call, crisis, separation, illness. Just this stage alone is rife with difficulties and dangers. And so I feel like perhaps, you know, people here are at this stage. Perhaps they've moved beyond it, and they can resonate with the dangers I'm about to say. But these dangers are unique to us living in the culture that it's one of the aims of the school. It's one of the aims of the courses is to put all of this and to study this as it relates to us living in the modern world. So the modern dangers of the modern call. The problem is, so when the astral body first separates from the ego, it's in a chaotic state. Our desires, but it also carries the effects of trauma. And it also carries our karma. So these are very complicated things. And so when it first separates, that we have to face these things. Consciousness is all mixed up with the lowliest things, with our shadows. Our light is mixed in with our shadow. Moreover, and this is another reason why the science of initiation is so important. The astral body, we speak, it has an anatomy. It has a nature to it. It has an inherently rebellious nature. It has an inherently expansive nature. Once it separates from the ego, it expands and it doesn't want to be caged anymore. This kind of trickster energy to it. So we need to think of it like a dragon that we need to tame in order to ride it safely. And I think the movie Avatar kind of symbolically represented that quite beautifully, actually. You know, our astral body is a dragon we need to tame, and it's our ego taming it, but not in a domineering way. The ego has to make use of the art and the science of initiation that's available to it. This is where alchemy comes in. It's necessary to perform alchemy on the astral body in order to make it fit for its job. Remember, its job is to mediate between the ego and the higher self. If you don't do alchemy on the astral body, it won't be able to guide your ego to your higher self. It will guide your ego towards illusion, inflation, and fall. So that's the main danger. I kind of spoiled it there. The main danger. So we're going to go into the types of modern calls. This is very important now for us today. It's a voluntary call, voluntary seeking. Because we're sort of facing this global spiritual, ecological, economic, like many-fold crisis, all are called. Path is open and the guidance is being provided. Something that's also unique to our modern times is a life-changing entheogenic experience. It's very common to find people like, so how did you get interested in shamanism? Oh, well, I was experience I had one day in the forest eating mushrooms, and I encountered God, you know, and like that started my journey. You know, that is a very, you know, for us, modern North America, that is a archetypal call. And if you get more like, you know, to think about it shamanistically, you could say like you're actually being called by an entheogenic teacher, a divine teacher itself. You can be called in a dream or a vision. Collapse of one's religious faith. This is also you know, if your religious faith is like a shell that holds your astral body in its configuration, collapses, the astral body doesn't know how to relate to God, so it you know, it's necessary to go on an initiatory journey in order to replace what the shell was holding, based on experience, gnosis. And related to that, this is what I experienced: a spiritual, vocational, existential crisis. Again, like, you know, you graduate from university, you're like, oh my God, my parents want me to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know my place in the world. That leads to a kind of weakening of the ego, and the weakening of the ego, it starts to loosen up the astral body. The astral body starts to become activated. The astral body becomes really activated and look a lot like a psychotic episode. Now, I will say some people I do believe are genuinely mentally ill, not have the stability or the ego strength to undergo initiation, initiatory process, and successfully incarnate the shamanic archetype. Others, however, get labeled mentally ill when they're going through really powerful initiatory experience, and this, they have to go through this experience in order to find their destiny and incarnate their higher self and find their purpose. And if this experience gets cut off through medication or through intervention, then that could be tragic and something that one has to escape from. So an accident or serious injury, or like anything that like kind of actually dismembers the body, physical body, a call. And of course, near-death experience is like the archetypal call. Like anybody that's actually had a near-death experience, you pretty much expect them to have a shamanistic awakening after that. Like if they come back from that, been twice born, like they are kind of initiated already, and it's just a question of like specializing. You know. To us as well as this idea like that we got it from our parents, but our parents weren't in a culture where they were able to go through an initiation, so they have this pathological uninitiated state. When people aren't initiated and they have the call, they often have like anger issues, mood disorders, addiction problems, alcoholism, violent outbursts, very inconsistent behavior, things that like they pass on to us. So not only do we have the difficulty of having to initiatory experience without much elderhood, we inherit the burden of our parents and take it on ourselves. But the good news is that with what's made available to us now today, we can actually kind of transform our ancestral karma, our ancestral karma. Oh, now we're starting to get into the real and darker aspect of this, because there is one thing you realize in this work is like the reality of the darkness of the spiritual world. The demons are real, a will of their own set against us. So if you experience trauma, sexual abuse, or if you're somehow forced to experience the demonic, abducted, taken to the underworld, tortured and tormented, that is an involuntary call. In order to get your soul back, you have to go through an initiatory passage. And this can happen if you have a sudden recovery of repressed traumatic memory. It can trigger an initiatory crisis. Night terrors, it's a type of call. And you can accidentally or naively invoke spirits, dabbling with the occult, dabbling with magic, and unintentionally or naively forming contracts. These are real. Contracts are real. They can be formed, and the spirits try to trick you into forming them. So if you fall for that involuntary oops kind of call, and you have to go through an initiation just to get yourself out of it, tricked or lured by dark magic, you can just simply follow temptation into the underworld, and then that's your sort of self-willed initiation. Artists, if you are an artist and you feel like a passionate, profound call to create a great work of art, that is a call to embark on an initiatory work. Also, meeting and falling in love with your soulmate, with your mystical soulmate, is an explosion of initiatory work. And also, on the other side of that, a breakup can do that too, or the end of a marriage. Finally, this one I like, but I shut it out. I won't do that anymore. I now accept my calling. There is a sort of overarching universal call, human being, because this is our home, the earth, and this is our inherent freedom of consciousness, and it's being challenged. This is our home, the earth. This is our inherent freedom of consciousness, and it's being challenged. They're trying to take it away from us. Of the spiritual world is real, but they're trying to convince us it's not real and call us crazy for saying it is. And there are divine mysteries, and it is time to know about them. Cover it up. And this is our birthright, because we are children of a divine creator and a divine mother. This is our birthright as human beings. Universal call in response to the crisis that we're all facing right now. So after this, you can think a little bit about how you're being called, and reflect on what you have endured to get to this point where you're hearing me right now. What have you endured to get to this point? What are the karmic consequences of the particular way in which your call manifested? Some people, their call was inspiring, and some people had very traumatic calls, and they're still working through that. So when the astral and etheric bodies of the candidate are in the process of awakening, it's common for the candidate to experience one or more of the following: disidentification with one's own personality, friend group, family, religious creed, cultural network. Boundless, restless energy. Dramatic mood swings, fits of crying, anger, passion, despair, exhilaration, depression. Pulses. Inexplicable nausea, vomiting, purgation. Anxiety attacks, panic attacks, sudden feelings of being overwhelmed, fear of dying, suffocating, being somehow annihilated. Rapid thought impulses, chaotic choir of thoughts in one's head, multiple thoughts competing for attention, thoughts and impulses and moods rapidly cycling between extremes, being at war with oneself, arguing with oneself. In the psychiatric paradigm, this would be taken as onset of schizophrenia. Vivid, like epic dreams that seem to last the whole lifetime. intensified creativity, intensified imagination, experience of being mystically connected to works of art, intensified connection with film, music, theater, visual art, Kundalini awakening, intensified sexual energy, magnetism, new powerful experiences of sexual ecstasy. Because the Kundalini is the spine of the astral body. Remember I said the astral body has organs. Well, the Kundalini is the actual spine of the astral body. So a Kundalini awakening is analogous to the awakening of the astral body. Or various techniques of ecstasy and trance, like chanting, dancing, drumming. You'll see this bold and even reckless use of psychedelics. A lot of enthusiasm about it, and to the point of almost like being worrisome. Mystical, philosophical epiphanies, intensifications of this feeling that, you know, we are all one, or that we are one with the Creator. Epiphanies. Downloads, intensified psychological insight, like almost psychic insight, clairvoyant phenomena, hearing thoughts, reading minds, seeing auras. Terrifying spiritual experiences like seeing demons in people, hearing demons in your own head, and maybe even speaking through your partner. Dramatic increase in synchronicities. That's like a good sign. That's one of the helpful signs. Keep following the synchronicities, and that will kind of guide you. Grandiose sense of higher purpose. Now we're getting into the dangerous signs. Grandiose sense of higher purpose, identification with these powerful archetypes, but it's like overly identifying with one and being consumed by the archetype. And then you start to think of yourself as a superhero, either consciously or subconsciously, and even as a thinking of yourself as a like messiah, savior figure. The surface, it's kind of in the subconscious, and accompanied with that is becoming more self-absorbed, arrogant, vain, bloated sense of your own wisdom and power, more rebellious, proud, and overbearing, tending to look down upon those who are on such an intense spiritual path, frustrated, dealing with the unawakened, especially one's parents. You start to become aware of bigger picture things, awareness of like occult streams working against human freedom. You start to get into trouble with authorities, with the concept that there could be extraterrestrial intelligence out there, the sense that humanity is actually part of an intergalactic network. Your higher bodies awaken, you naturally become aware of higher dimensions, other dimensions. Their origin myths, maybe the history that they told you in school is not quite, doesn't quite click. Becoming fascinated and even obsessed with magic, sorcery, occultism, hermeticism, alchemy, astrology, tarot, theosophy. Interest in alternative medicine and the healing arts, because these treat the astral body, not merely the physical body. Yoga, tantra, meditation, these are forms of taming the astral body. These are local lineages. Awaken interest in healthier eating habits, because food affects your higher bodies. Nutrition for your higher bodies. To materialistic science, pharmaceuticals, vaccines. Needful of connecting more deeply with nature, to be in nature, to learn from nature, to harmonize one's life with nature, to revere nature. Archaic subculture, Burning Man, trance dance culture, neo-pagan spirituality, alternative relationship models, alternative economic and community models, strong rejection, organized religion. And inspired by new age of spiritually enlightened humanity. Optimism that we can't lose. We have to hold on to this optimism, but we have to be really realistic about it. Compelled to envision new paradigms for a more enlightened world. So I hinted at the dangers, but now I'm going to get really explicitly into the dangers. The danger is twofold. It's dangerous to undergo initiatory work on the astral body, but there is recourse. There is a science of initiation that can guide us safely through. Dangerous not to undergo it, to refuse the call, and there is no recourse for that. So quite frankly, we are just living in like perilous times, no matter how you cut it. Perilous times, and there's no way to avoid this. So in our culture, the awakening of the astral body is a dangerous process. One can become unstable, vulnerable to the darkness of the astral realm, uncontrollably moody, to rage, to depression, to ecstasy, and so on, disregarding or disdainful of social norms, which could get you arrested, labeled mentally ill, drugs that cut off your connection to your own spirit and to the spiritual world, and sabotage your initiatory process. Or addicted to drugs that further sabotage the initiatory process, like alcohol. You kind of delay it as to avoid it for a little while at least. Or you can go pathologically seeking soul flight, like street drugs, like crack and heroin and morphine, oxy. Like these lead, give you this ecstatic soul flight, but in a pathological form. So if you're not consciously pursuing your initiation, you're going to be subconsciously pursuing it in this way. And for your astral body yearns to separate. And so if you do carry it out in a pathological way, it leads to possession. Another danger is a decadent, because the astral body carries your desires, and when the astral body starts to expand, your desires start to expand. Fall into a decadent, naive indulgence of the sensual, following desire where it leads under the excuse of following the energy, going with the flow, following the guidance of the universe. And there's practical dangers accompanied with that, but there's also occult dangers accompanied with that. You start to become overly influenced by the other person's astral bodies, and if they have things in them, poisons in them, or pains in them, you can start to take it on. You can fall into dark magic, sexual decadence, and demonic possession. Your astral body can become permeated by perversity. But if you refuse the call, your astral body remains subconscious and can easily be possessed by dark spirits through various sorceries that are prevalent in our culture, through the media, through the brainwashing that's happening all the time through the media. The astral forces in your soul can be put into the service of dark forces. You can become brainwashed, indoctrinated, and that is the equivalent of your soul being enslaved. Read in our culture that anybody that does not awaken their astral body and take full responsibility for its alchemy runs a serious danger of actually being enslaved by a number of malevolent agendas. It's like catch-22, you know. But if you don't go for it, you can become possessed. If you do go for it, you can become possessed. If you're too bold, you'll rush headlong into it, and you'll get on the radar of dark spirits before you know how to defend yourself. You'll become more vulnerable to being attacked. You can become scapegoated, victimized, and tormented. And if you're too ambitious, you can also be tricked or persuaded into making pacts with a demon in exchange for knowledge, sexual charisma, creativity, genius. It's important to know demons can actually disguise themselves as healing allies and even beings of light. Have ambition about wanting to be a shaman, because this is really dangerous. This will actually lead you into this subtle. So I mean, I can go further into detail about the dangers of possession. I mean, that's really like the purpose of the module of the course. This is taken from a module of the first 101 course. And so I go sort of systematically into detail for everybody's sake, so they can kind of their danger zone and make sense of what they've been through. But generally speaking, the danger is possession. And you can host not only demons in your shadows, in your unawakened astral body or your pathologically awakened astral body, you can also host suffering spirits, which cause suicidal depression, illness, lots of illness, self-destructive behavior, tremendous loss of energy, lethargy. Of that, you can also become paranoid, because these are real dangers. That you can lose your sense of what's real and what's not real, and become completely paranoid. You really kind of on all sides. It's difficult on all sides. And then there's the subtle danger, new age danger. You can be seduced when you go through this activation of your astral body, this expansion of your astral body. You're more vulnerable to being seduced by the so-called elders, you know, that come with their vague and overly simplistic and even distorted conceptions and profound mystical concepts, mysteries, knowledge that comes from the mystery schools. You can become subtly indoctrinated into sorcery and charlatanism and then become a beacon for spreading these false teachings. You can develop an orgiastic attitude for the sacred. When people start using bloated archetypal language, like they start capitalizing, like they start invoking like archetypes every other word and capitalizing words, and they start saying like divine and infinite and abundance in the universe, like all the time. Like divine is a special word, but it starts to be used a lot and kind of sign of inflation. So that's really the new age danger, is that inflation is becoming overly identified with your higher self, mistaking the self that you're becoming with the ego that you currently are. And along with that comes self-absorption, selfishness, always like playing the heroic protagonist in your own myth, solipsistic, in love with your own spiritual charisma, arrogant, exuding a sense of superiority and disdain for the unawakened. So there's lots of dangers here. Practical, stuck in neverland, visionary that never manifests, and you can become isolated. And that's something that I think we all struggle with. And that's why it's so healing to find community through the same kind of experience. So in terms of becoming an effective shamanic individual, is being unable to navigate the astral because you have not illuminated your shadow nor purified your astral body. Blind spots attract negative spirits and you enter into danger. The danger gets greater the more experienced you become and the higher up you try to climb. New increments of experience, wisdom, and power are always followed by new increment of temptation, danger of falling. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow it casts. The more inflated the ego, the bigger the shadow. So a bright light plus a bloated ego results in a big and dark shadow. This is why we need elders, and this is why we need lineage. So now we're done with the dangers. I'm going to get to the good news. We have elders and we have lineage. We need a key to tap into it. That's what my work is about, is tapping into all of these things that I've just spoken about. These are kind of phenomenology of the shamanic archetype manifesting in our. So now we need to tap into the shamanistic and ancestral guidance that we have that's been sort of stashed away for us to discover at this time. If we have the key, we understand how to unlock it. So the problem, again, the astral forces in the soul, they need to be tamed and purified and transmuted. Incarnate aspects of the shamanic archetype in your life and in your culture. We need guidance. What we receive from our elders is the most important line of defense against these dangers. The very existence of actual elders proves that it's possible to gain victory over these dangers. Are our elders, who can we trust to safely guide us through this mysterious process? Here is one of them. Carl Jung. Carl Jung went through this process himself, and he linked it. So he went through a primary shamanistic awakening. He didn't have any guidance, but he managed to find the guidance. Western esoteric lineage of alchemy. So now I'm going to show you what I put together, because I made a roadmap for you. I've linked the archetypal experience of shamanism, tradition, and with Jungian psychology, and with visionary art and mythological study. And I put it together in this course. The first course of the school is called Modern Soul Science 101. I want to show you. Are you still seeing the screen? This module is an introduction to the course, and it covers all 4 elements: archetypal shamanism, second pillar, alchemy, third pillar, Jungian psychology, fourth pillar, modern mythology, and visionary art. We cover the concepts that you need for this science: the higher self, the soul body, the ego, mixtures and false masters, and an introduction to the alchemy of contemporary initiation. This is a microcosm of the whole course. Then we go into the shamanic archetype, and we go much more in depth. We cover a facet of the 25 facets, so you can really relate to the ones that are guiding you. The third module is the introduction to the science of initiation into the astral body and what actually happens during the initiation process, the imprinting process, the fertilization process, the separation process. There's the universal shamanic initiation narrative. Module 5, we just covered modern dangers of the modern call. But then module 6, at the halfway point, this is the crucial link. This is where we connect now to the Hermetic lineage. So first we dive into what is this archetype? What is our expression of this shamanic impulse? And then once we've looked at the archetype, now we do this very special healing of our own ancestral memory. We do a historical soul retrieval. We trace the Hermetic impulse history gradually and retrieve it. So we're really actually retrieving. You can see here, it just goes up every 100 years. Each lesson is 100 years, step by step, retrieving it. Which brings us to the modern moment, the missing link. Carl Jung's experience in the Red Book. This is what connects the past Hermetic lineage to our present modern day situation, because Jung really put this science into a new language. Now, this is what I hope to add, but it's in a modern language now. We can now decode our lineage because Carl Jung gave us the key to do that. So now that we have the key that Jung gave us, we go back into Jungian psychology, but with a more radical shamanistic view. Simply talk about archetypes of the unconscious, we can now talk about spirits and actual demons and actual shamanistic phenomena. Psychology revisioned to suit the needs of our struggles that we have to face today in the spiritual crisis that we have to face today. The conditions are a lot different today than when Jung was teaching. So this lineage has to be updated. And we need not only modern psychology that integrates shamanism, but we need also a modern mythology that integrates shamanism. We need to understand and create new myths. So we understand how to decode classical myths, and we understand how to create new myths. In module 11, we dive into the actual, what does it mean to practice shamanism from an archetypal point of view? What is the role of entheogens and how to work with entheogens? What are the principles of working with entheogens safely? Various dangers, as you can see. And so this is a foundation for build a Western manifestation of the shamanic archetype. And finally, the final module, alchemy of contemporary shamanic initiation. This really ties it all together. And we bridge everything with the science, with the divine art and science of alchemy. And this is where I provide you with a key to unlock it and to understand how this science can help you, give you a key to decode this ancestral wisdom. So that's the 101 course. And this is the first course of the school. So forward now. Options. First option is to pursue or to start archetype workbook. This is an amazing tool. I've also created a free comprehensive workshop to help you work through this tool and use this tool. This can keep you busy and bring you like fruitful, very fruitful. This role as a student in the School of Modern Soul Science. You can proceed with the report. So I'm now going to give you 2 opportunities to be founding students of the school. The school is launching this week. Enrollment is open. So we started on, we opened 18th, and we close this Friday, January 27th. At just before midnight. We close and we'll open again in 6 months. So the first opportunity is for enrollment in the 101 course, which I just showed you. So you will get, I showed you the modules. Module 1, what is modern soul science? An overview of the 4 disciplines and of the subject of study. Depth in the shamanic archetype, the 25 facets, how the archetype is manifesting in you. You do the workbook, and we move from that to the introduction to the science of initiation, then the archetypal shamanic narrative, the modern dangers of the modern call, the hermetic archetype. This is where we make the crucial link. Tracing the hermetic archetype through history. This is when we do the historical soul retrieval. Present, the missing link, the new link in the chain, Jung and the Red Book. We have to understand this moment. This is the critical moment. This is what ties it all together. That missing link in hand, we go into a more radical approach to Jungian psychology. It's already radical enough in the world of psychology, but we now need to adapt it to suit the needs of our times. Foundations for modern mythology, and this is the creative wing, is extremely important in this school because a lot of the teachings have to do with archetypal symbolism, both creating them and understanding them. Foundation for an archetypal approach to shamanism, and finally, the alchemy of contemporary shamanic initiation. So that is the content for the 101 course. So by this time next year, course tuition will be $450. Until January 27th, tuition for Modern Soul Science 101 is only $250. And to get that $200 discount at checkout, you need to enter the coupon code StarSeed101. And you have to hit redeem coupon before you check out. So below the screen there is the button for Modern Soul Science 101. If you want to enroll in that, then enter StarSeed101 and hit redeem coupon. So this includes lifetime access to the 101 course. For you to understand, like, I'm going to be upgrading these all the time. I hope to work with visionary animators to start animating the concepts in the course, and it's just going to keep gaining in value. This is just the first version of the course, so you are entitled to lifetime access to the course and all content upgrades. That's the 12 modules of content, and each module is roughly 15 lessons, and each lesson is 5 to 15 minutes. Roughly 22 hours, it's actually more like 30 hours of video lectures. And these 30 hours have been distilled from many, many, many more hours of work on my part. Like a distillation. And this includes workbooks, like you'll see the Shamanic Archetype workbook is quite something. And really inspiring homework assignments, and mostly creative homework assignments, mandalas, dialogues, and deep inner work. The homework is inner work. So a new module will come out every month for the next 12 months. Starting February 1st, in a couple days, Module 1 releases. an overview of the whole course. And then a new module is released every first of the month. I feel this is the perfect pace for safe and manageable consumption without getting knowledge indigestion, without getting overwhelmed. This has been measured to be a very good pace to take this in. It also includes weekly, so every week I'm going to meet online with all students, and I'll field as many questions as there are questions. This window that's open now of enrollment, if you enroll in this window, this particular cohort will receive the most teacher support of any cohort in the future. And you will also be getting a precious community, spirits that are going through remarkably similar experiences, studying the same material at the same time. I really feel this is priceless. This is truly priceless. The 101 course is just the beginning. I would like to invite you now to enroll as a founding student in this school. So as the school grows, you grow. And as you grow, the school grows. Now I'm going to tell you about the second opportunity, the complete curriculum. This offer includes everything previously mentioned. 12 modules of the 101, lifetime access to all content upgrades, lifetime access to private Facebook group, which is where the Q&As will take place, all live Q&As, calls, and recordings. But if you enroll before January 27th at midnight, you will also receive lifetime access to, as I said, Modern Soul Science 101. Now I'll say the theme of Modern Soul Science 101 treats the departure, the preparation and the call, the initial stages of the journey. That's what 101 really focuses on. We will also receive lifetime access to Modern Soul Science 201. Similar in scope to 101, but it deals with descent, death, spiritual rebirth, the middle stage of the process, the actual initiatory stage itself. And it deals with it through the four facets, through the four disciplines of shamanism, alchemy, mythology, Jungian psychology. And Modern Soul Science 301. And this deals with the ascent, the return of the culture to the realm of action and service. So this is a $1,350 value. Moreover, this includes in-depth seminars, because each level, the 101 level, opens up to at least five to seven 100 level in-depth seminars where we go much more in-depth into the themes and the threads that were introduced in the 101 course. And the same thing with the 201. The 201 opens up into 5 to 7 200 level in-depth seminars. And the 301 opens up to other in-depth seminars. There are currently 15 of these seminars in development, and in the future they'll be sold as standalone courses, and they're valued at $150 each. So this is a total value of at least $2,200. So to recap, the complete curriculum included an opportunity, number one, Modern Soul Science 101, to all content upgrades, lifetime access to online community and support, weekly Q&A calls and recordings, plus 201, 301, and all 100 level, 200 level, and 300 level seminars of at least $1,200 value. That together is valued at least $4,250. Value of a community of kindred souls. But from now until January 27th, the complete curriculum of the School of Modern Soul Science for a one-time investment. Now, because we believe in action and want to reward courage, decisiveness, and faith in us, we're offering a special enrollment window that will benefit most those who act soon. So tonight until midnight, Wednesday, January 25th, offering this complete curriculum for a one-time investment of $450. Button now at the complete curriculum, you'll have to enter the coupon code 50 special. That will lower the tuition to $450. But after midnight tonight, it goes up to $475. Day of enrollment on Friday, it will be up to $500. So now is the time to act. But when enrollment reopens in August, this one-time investment, we're planning to offer the complete curriculum again, but it will start at $600 and it will keep going up from there. So you can see the curriculum, you see what it is, and this is the window now. Now I want to make totally clear now that we've made it so that this can be a no-risk investment for you, because I believe in ethical exchange. You don't want your money if you aren't more than happy to trade it for lifetime access to the school. Advantage of this offer now, but regret it later on. We don't want to keep your money. Students in the school who absolutely want to be there and who are satisfied with their investment. So we've come up with a double guarantee to ensure that. First is a 60-day change of heart full refund policy. We are confident you will love this course. If you don't, for any reason, simply email us by April 1st, 2017, requesting a refund, and we will reimburse your tuition in full. Hassles, no questions asked. We will ask you to fill out an optional survey just because we want to know how we could do better, but that's optional. If you don't want to fill that out, then you just want the refund, no problem. And the other is a 6-month satisfied student guarantee. If you genuinely engage with the course and by the 6-month mark you're unsatisfied, tuition. This is contingent on you completing all the lessons and engaging sincerely in the curriculum, quizzes, homework, and community. We also offer monthly installments if $450 is not in your budget right now. So the 2 payment plans available. It's of $160, payments of $85. Now, as the week progresses, these payment plans will also increase slightly. Tomorrow, they'll be higher. Moreover, we also have a referral incentive program. So if you happen to know somebody that also is subject of study, because it's been our experience, sincerely interested and passionate about this, they have friends that are equally passionate about it. So invite them to join you during this enrollment window, and you can receive a substantial tuition refund for each referral. So the golden chain incentive for students enrolled in the school. Refer a friend before enrollment closes, and they will be eligible for the same tuition break that you got. So if you enroll tonight, you get the complete curriculum for $1. But let's say your friend wants to enroll on Friday. Instead of pay the $450, just like you. And the mycelium incentive. Who enrolls and remains enrolled past the 6-month satisfied student guarantee, you will receive $100 on your account. So friends, and all 4 of them love the course and they stay in the course, you will receive a $400 credit on your tuition. So you can potentially get a free ride into the school. In addition to that, for each friend you refer, 30-minute private consultation. We also offer need-based scholarships. We sincerely want to make this study available to anybody who is sincerely called to embark on this study. And it so happens that people going through this kind of experience, this initiatory work, these passages, they tend to have a difficult time, and I feel compassion for that. So we're offering 20 need-based scholarships. Enroll in the school through one of the payment plans, remembering the 60-day refund policy. After you enroll, email us the application form. Complete it and submit it first, and just explain your situation, like frankly, and why you want to embark on the study now. We'll review your application. If you're selected, you'll receive a reimbursement on your tuition. If you're not selected, or if you don't receive an award like as substantial an award as you were needing or really hoping, you can easily get a refund. Now, another incentive. I'm Canadian, and those of you that are Canadian that are listening right now. The exchange rate isn't easy. It's tough. So we're offering, to alleviate the burden of the exchange rate, we're offering a 15% discount for the one-time payment, $50. So this is not available for monthly payment plans. If you enroll, just contact us and let us know that you're Canadian, and we'll credit your one-time tuition by 15%. So to recap, opportunity number 1 to enroll in the school. Soul Science 101 plus lifetime access to upgrades, private face group, live weekly Q&A and recordings. $8. Enter the coupon code STARSEED101 and hit redeem coupon before the checkout. And the complete curriculum. For one-time tuition of $450, you receive lifetime enrollment in the entire school, beginning with Modern Soul Science 101, rolling out February 1st with a new module every month. And then Modern Soul Science 201, which launches in 2018, and Modern Soul Science 301, which launches in 2019. So this is at minimum a 3-year curriculum. Weekly live Q&A, community and support. 60 days full refund policy, 6-month satisfied student guarantee. Risk to act now. Plus payment plans and need-based scholarship. For referrals, if you know somebody that would like this and that enrolls, $100 refund on your tuition for every referral. Consultation. Okay, my friends, that is the end of my presentation. So I will be fielding questions now until there are no more questions, or until it gets very late. Thank you for hopping on this wave and joining me tonight. I hope this was informative to you. And I'm going to start taking questions now. So I'm going to go back into video mode. Okay. Is it showing video now? So this is an opportunity to ask any questions you might have about the course, about the school, the material covered in the lesson. So just write your questions in the chat box below. We'll see them and I'll start answering. Okay. Okay, Anonymous 6204. Andrew, you said you don't like using the term shaman as a noun. What do you call yourself? Andrew Camargo. I call myself a soul scientist, a modern soul scientist. I did the Shamanic Archetype workbook, and I did my personal constellation. So there's no like one word. I mean, the one word is like soul scientist, but I could show you my constellation, and I can show you like the unique way that I'm this archetype. Okay. Okay. Yes, please. Yes, please. Sorry. Did you? Yes, please. What? What can I give you? Come on, guys. You surely have some questions. Oh, I don't have it with me right now. Do you know the workbook? I scored high on hero, light bearer, spiritual warrior, initiated into the darkness of the spiritual world, alchemist, hermetic magician, and then those are my high scoring facets. And my wife insisted that I rescore myself on trickster because she insisted that I scored too low on it, and she was right. So yeah. I've reached, okay, there we go. I have reached the constellation point of the workbook. My formation is a 1, 3, got 2, and I have 17 facets that empower them. I think, yeah. Some of them are having issues with overlapping, and I can't seem to get them all in same place without having them connected to ones that don't empower. Any ideas? I would cut the last 2. You know, do a one gap 3, and then see what that will lower your empowering facets. That will simplify your constellation. You don't have to include all 6 facets. The timing of this video was astonishing. Can you tell me about timing? Timing. The timing of can you clarify that? Like the timing of how this came into your life? Okay, timing of the video. we wanted to do an experiment today with just a blitz, just a couple hours before the webinar, because we wanted people to just see it by synchronicity their way into the webinar. And if you happen to see it at like 5 o'clock, and then you just happen to have nothing to do tonight, and you happen to come to the webinar, and it happened to connect with you, then that's really the connection I was looking for. I was hoping to make that connection. So I just sort of rolled the dice. We put some ads out really last minute, trusting that a few people would just be in the right place at the right time, and it would be guided with synchronicity, sort of magical, uncanny forces. Anonymous 3572. I want to know how to make this workable in life. Great. Can you become a shamanic practitioner by taking this course? Shamanic practitioner. Everybody is a shamanic practitioner in one way or another if you're working on awakening your astral body. To like, that's not what this course is offering. An instruction on how to become a shamanic practitioner. This is giving you the tools that you need to do the inner work that you need to do to pursue an initiatory path, which safely, which naturally leads to, you know, these certain abilities and certain developments and maturation of your abilities. But there's no like certificate of shamanic practitioner, and you're not going to be drilled on how to go into trances, and you're not going to be given lots of exercises on like go retrieve this soul, go do this. However, you will be given constant inner work. The homework is based entirely on constant inner work, and we're going to be giving you foundation you need to manifest your higher self, and you're going to be connected to the lineage of this shamanistic guidance that is suitable for our own culture. So I won't say it'll make you a shamanic practitioner. You'll become a shamanic practitioner. It's more than that in a way. It gives you the basis for becoming the person that you're meant to be. Anonymous 5548. Why would you say there is such a divide between the school of thought and various organized religions? I have seen so much about this being demonic in nature and vice versa. Why do they not easily work together? That's a good esoteric question. Because at a certain point in history, there was an impulse to the Gnostic element in spirituality and the entheogenic element in spirituality. It was actually deliberately removed. That carried it on were exterminated, and what remained is a shell that where the gnosis has like been hollowed out, and what perpetuated and what spread is the shell. And the shell kind of acts like a vaccine against gnosis. And so what we'll call now like organized religions today are like this shell, inherited like antagonism towards the shamanistic path, which is based entirely on experience. So this does really get into, as you said, like issues about the demonic influences on human history. It does come down to that. There's forces in the spirit world that are influencing human actions and that are furthering human vessels and through human institutions. And so there's an impulse to alienate humans from God and to put them in a false container and feed from them, feed from their need to be close to God. So I don't want to get more specific than that. Yeah. Kati, first I would like to say thank you for all your offerings. You're welcome. I can see you put a lot of thought into how to best share. Oh, thank you. All those who are called regardless of income. That means a lot, and I can see your sincerity. My question is, at what point in the curriculum, if any, will students be able to hold journey sessions and soul retrievals for other people safely? Something that I guarantee in my curriculum. There are people coming into the school that can already do that. That can go through the whole curriculum and not have the gift or the guidance to be able to do that. There's no direct relationship between graduate from the school and be able to facilitate for other people. A lot of that has to do with what your gifts are, with what your guides, who your guides are, what other work you've already done. What this course is about, inner work on yourself. So you will be able to do a lot of the shadow work, to be a clean vessel, to do that kind of work, to do the facilitation work more reliably, because that's ultimately what corrupts it and what causes problems, is when you haven't done sufficient shadow work, when you haven't tamed your astral body enough. And that can really become a subtle poison when you start facilitating for other people. So I can say that there's no direct relationship between learning how to facilitate or being qualified to facilitate, but it gives you the ideal groundwork for work, and also connecting you to the wisdom of our elders that will give you this sort of that will inspire you with more humility to be able to do that work safely. Anonymous 4272. I felt like I was called upon, that it was called upon me to watch this. The forces have worked for you. That's great. That's like really cool. That's really good to hear. I hope we can continue to manifest more synchronicities. We're called here for a reason, so maybe there's something that you need to get out of this. Anonymous 6204. In the sense one could skip to section 3, for example, for one little further in the process, or is it really geared to take people from point A to point B? If the latter, is there more detailed samples of lessons for one's review? Yes. Okay, that's a great question. That's a good question. So this year, the 101 course is being rolled out month by month. So just by virtue of that, it encourages like progress through step by step. The course is designed to build one after the other. So it is like designed to take you from point A to point B. And yes, there very much is a detailed curriculum that you can look at deeply. Click the buttons below the screen. You can go into the curriculum and see, at least, well, as detailed as it gets right now, is the title of each lecture. Okay, so each lecture will be about 15 minutes long, 10 to 20 minutes long, and you can see the title of each lecture, and you'll get a sense of like the scope and the map, the A to the B. In the future, the 101 course, when it's released in a year, will be released all at once, so people can skip around as they want. But for now, first cohort, kind of going through it as a community, or growing through it together. And if those people are kind of like, they're maybe more experienced on some modules than others, then they can really flourish as like in the community, as facilitators in the community, and yeah, keep learning. Claire. Andrew, I'm still having trouble with page 37, the last column on the right. Power and clusters are for, okay, I mean, I can't remember what's page 37. Okay, Claire. Okay, so Claire, page 37 is for your, yeah, I mean, you can do both. You know, you can do a summary of all of the facets and figure out which ones are your most empowering, but really the most important one is what are your top 7 facets. They're not the same as your highest scoring facets. What are your top 7 most empowering facets? And those are the ones that you really need to get into in detail. Empowering cluster facets, yeah. Okay. Anonymous 5548, you touched on mental illness. What are your thoughts on medicating the symptoms that can manifest during the awakening? Can medications hold you back from your calling? Yes. Anything that can be done alternatively to ease the transition if medication is a hindrance? That's a good question. Like I was saying, like the medication kind of delays or kind of hijacks the natural initiatory process. They can absolutely hold you back from your calling. And furthermore, is there anything that can be done alternatively to ease the transition? The transition to going off your meds, or if medication is a hindrance? In order to go off your medication, like as soon as you go off your medication, the initiatory crisis will like. So you need to have a network of support ready that has a comprehension and an understanding of a paradigm. Like you need to go through this. You need to get to the other side of it. I mean, every case needs to be judged individually. We need a support network of people that have a paradigm with this paradigm to see as like not something that needs to be avoided, but something that needs to be endured and to get to the other side. that's the main thing, is support. There's other various like things you can do to you know, stabilize yourself more, to tame the astral forces that are going crazy. You know, eating and exercise and medication and various spiritual disciplines and practices. Okay, there's 13 people watching now. So let's get a last round of questions, please. I love what you're doing, Andrew. Thank you. You are on the forefront here, and your hard work and also entrepreneurial leadership is great. Thank you. Thank you. Where are the where are the 25 facets at? Great. Well, we'll email it to you after we go offline, but you can find them on Facebook if you go to the School of Modern Soul Science. The School of Modern Soul Science page on Facebook. You can find it there. But we can tell like that you came, so we have your email. We can send you the link to download it. So invite the last 12 people to join one last time. I invite the last 12 people to join me in the school as founding students. So this is my final invitation for the night. This is a special window now for those that were guided here tonight. We're guided here for a reason. And I invite you to join me further to see where this goes. This is James. I want to say thank you for the amazing input within the Facebook group. You're welcome, James. Yeah, you're totally welcome. Yeah, thanks for coming. I'm glad to have you here. That's something that's been really inspiring me lately is the possibility of community, because it's an online school and the content is delivered in filmed video lectures, but the for community is amazing. It's very special, and it's very necessary to have community to embolden and support each other in this process, because it can be very lonely and it can be very. So I've been just really inspired by the new students and their hope and their courage and their huge spirit of sharing themselves. Yeah. You moderate community at all? Been in other shamanic type communities, and they got junked up with a lot of liberal politics. So you can't always vet the students. Yeah, I mean, of course we moderate, and you know, the students. It's not a forum to discuss stuff outside of the course. I mean, it's a school, it's a class. Discuss the material of the class, and we will be moderating it to keep it on track with the objectives of the school and the objectives of the class. A forum for people to debate politics or share memes. So like, this is just our first. We're just launching the school now. This is the first cohort, but as it grows, you know, it might be necessary to make it more application based. We are working in a lineage here, and with a kind of focus, and it's not everybody's a fit for it. They may think, oh, I'm going to take this course and learn about magic and shamanism, and I'm going to learn how to be a shaman, and they enroll, and they'll probably ask for a refund, because I'll say straight up, like, no, like, this course is not going to make you a shaman. In fact, like, you're going to come away from this course, like, hopefully not even wanting to refer to yourself in those terms. Like, I actually discourage that. I don't think it leads to good things. It's just so grandiosity and delusions of grandeur, and so no. Good question. There were classes I took online with Facebook groups. People work the politics in. Well, like, I've been on a like 17-year journey, and I'm just starting now to teach, you know, this with this school. I mean, I've been putting the school together, but so I'm learning as I go. My hopes for what the community will be, but I have to learn through experience and through learning these things like the hard way, and seeing what you're talking about myself. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I'm not naive about it. Especially these days, like people are so heated, and the political sphere is such a horror show. So time not especially if it's a good community, if it's a good community of friends who support each other, people can come on to me, oh, I just watched the news and I'm so depressed, I need to vent. So it'll come up for sure. But we are moderating it, and we are aiming to keep things on track with to follow the line, the straight and narrow line, the golden thread. And that's our vision for it. But we're gonna like freedom and let them flower. So we need to get our experience and learn. Okay, guys, this is last chance. 12 of you now are here. So if you've been holding on to any questions, maybe you're wondering if you should ask them, now's the time to ask them. So we're okay. So thanks everybody for coming, and I do hope to see you in the school. And if you enjoy this webinar, we're going to be offering 2 more webinars this week. And hope to see you in the school. So I invite you to share this with friends. If you got something valuable out of this, share this with friends. Let them know enrolling in the school, and you share this with a friend and they enroll in the school, your tuition will be much more within reach. This week, and stay tuned for the Shamanic Archetype workbook. And I know that you'll get a lot out of that. That's all for now. Thank you very much, and good luck, and be courageous, and stay true to your destiny. That's all for now.